Alright, in this video we're going to go over how to render a wireframe and composite a wireframe. This is going to be an advanced tutorial. I do have another video of how to render wireframes using contour shader, and that one's pretty simple, but I've heard a lot of feedback where it doesn't work when you're rendering sequences and things like that. And what I'm about to show you here is definitely a surefire way to render a wireframe, but it is kind of an advanced setup. So just be prepared to if you're following along, you're probably going to need to pause a lot because I'm going to go over a lot of information here. So what we're going to use to render our wireframe is a ramp shader, and I want to use a render layer for that, and we're going to need to create a different UV set. So first, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and just apply a Mila material to this, because I do want to use ambient occlusion, and we'll do an ambient occlusion pass. So I'm just going to apply regular old Mila material to this, and maybe darken it a little bit. And that's it. And so basically I want to, I did that to the master layer. So if you go over to your channel box and just switch to your render layers, I did that to the master layer because I'm going to render out the ambient occlusion and everything on the master layer. Now I want to render the wireframe out on a different layer. So I'm going to select everything I have here, and I'm going to click this little button right over here, which is basically going to create a new layer and add selected. So I'll do that, and I'll just name this wireframe layer. So I'm going to go in and do create a few layer overrides. But first, let's get this get a material applied to this. So I'm going to select everything that I have here, and I'm going to right click and assign a surface shader to this. So surface shader. It should just turn black. Let me go ahead and delete all my history just so I get rid of any nodes that I don't need. And we're going to right click material attributes and look at the properties we have here. So the first thing I want to look at is OutColor. So I want to grab my OutColor here and apply a ramp to this. So ramp. And I want to set my type to box ramp and my interpolation to none. So what we see so far, we're not gonna see much. Basically, what we're gonna do, we have this box ramp here, and if we edit that, you can kind of see how that affects. It'll start to affect a little bit. But basically, what we want to do is map this box to each and every polygon on our model. And in order to do that, we have to kind of mess up the UVs a little bit. So I want to do that in a way where I can always go back and edit. I still have my other UVs, and I'm going to do this on a layer by itself. So you'll see that because we're on a layer by ourselves, or this is on a layer by itself. If I go back to my other, I still have my Mila material assigned on my master layer. So the changes I'm making here are only going to be made on this wireframe layer. So let's go to our UV editor. And what I want to do here is I want to create a new UV set so I don't mess up the current UVs that I have. So to do that, I'm in my modeling menu here, and I'm going to go up to UV set editor, and I have everything selected, eyes and everything. So this will create a new set for the head and the eyes as well. So I'm going to click new, and then I can double click, and we'll just name this wireframe set. OK and hit update. And basically we are now set to this wireframe set. If we go to UV sets here, so there's no UVs here at the moment. So in order to get UVs, what we want to do, we don't want to do a planar map or anything like that. We're going to select our object, and over here we're going to right click, go to polygons and unitize. And basically what this is going to do is every polygon on our model is going to get mapped perfectly to this square here. You know, whether it's a triangle or it will probably work with an n-gon as well, but that's basically what I want to do here. So I'm going to select everything, polygons, unitize. And now we're still not going to see much. You see that we have UVs here now. We have this big, you know, this is basically what we want to see. But we're still not going to see anything here because our, let's make sure we hit 6, so we're in shaded display. But our model isn't assigned to that UV set. So even though our shader is assigned to that UV set, our model isn't actually assigned to that UV set. So we want to go and assign that model to that UV set. So to do that, we're going to go up to Window, Relationship Editors, and that's Rendering Editors, Relationship Editors, and UV Linking, and we can just do Texture Centric. Should work fine. So you have to do this one model at a time. It's not going to work if we do it on select everything and do it. So we'll select the head and click on ramp, and you'll see that currently that's set to map 1. So as soon as I set to map 2, now we're going to see our wireframe on the model. So I want to do that to the eyes as well. And now we should see there. So I'm not sure if this switches to by layer. We may have to, it may. Well, actually, let's switch to this layer and check just to see if that works. So yeah, I think that actually still works. It's assigned to the right thing. Okay, so now if I just do a quick render, I'm rendering in mental ray. We get a wireframe. Now the first problem we're going to see is that it doesn't render the silhouette, the wireframe for the silhouette, and that, you know, I don't see a huge problem with that here. I do have a little bit of an animation in my scene, but if I get to an angle, you know, like try to get a good angle where you can see what I'm talking about here. So like right there, we don't see that other end of the wireframe. So if I were to render this, it's going to look weird. So it doesn't render the silhouette, but that's something that we can fix in After Effects when we're compositing it together. The other problem that we have is that we don't have an alpha channel in the right sort of area for this. So if I look at my alpha channel, we'll see that it's all kind of it's all white, so I'm not going to see through that wireframe to the model beneath. So there's a really easy way I can fix that, and that is to jump over into our hypershade, and we'll graph our shader ball here, and we'll graph input and output connections. And what I want to do is basically attach that same ramp to our out matte opacity. So that will basically control what is transparent and what is not. So that's going to be a really easy way to do that. So I'll just come over here, and I can just click on OutColor and plug that into Out Matte Opacity as well. So now that ramp is controlling not only our color, but also the actual opacity of that shader. And again, I can really quickly come in and adjust the thickness of those lines just by adjusting that ramp if I want them thicker or thinner. So if I render that, that will solve one of those problems. So if I look at my alpha channel, it pretty much looks the exact same as my RGB channel. So before I move on and actually do a batch render of this, there's a few other things that I want to do real quick, and I'll explain them as I go. First, I want to go to my render settings, and you'll see that I am in a wireframe layer here. And I want to go to quality and come down to filter, and I'm going to create a layer override here. So I'm just going to right click, create layer override, and then I'm going to change that to Mitchell. Mitchell will just give you a much crisper alias line. You'll notice that these lines are kind of blurred a little bit. This will give you a much better line, and I'm creating that layer override because using Mitchell sometimes with animations can give you like a weird effect, sort of a vibration effect with your animation. So I don't want that on my ambient occlusion, I just want that on my wireframe. So that's why I'm creating the layer override. And yeah, so let's just re-render that, see what that looks like real quick. So yeah, that looks much better compared to what we had before. So a lot less blurrier, and that basically just because we switched to Mitchell. Okay, so the other thing I want to do here is let's jump over to our master layer here and look at the render settings for it. So we have a Mila material on here, so we can take advantage of those Mila passes. So if I come over to scene, I have all those, I can take advantage of those passes. So I don't really want, if I were going to, if this had a lot more going on, I would want my other passes. But for this, we're just going to render out a ambient occlusion and a matte pass. So I'm going to click Use Matte Passes, and basically what a matte pass does is it renders out a black and white image for every single material that you have. So you can use these, and if you have a lot of materials, you can really get some crazy editing going on with these, because you basically have an opacity or an opportunity to like edit every single different material you have in your scene in post. So if you want to change the color of any material, you can do that in post with these. So those are really useful. And I'm going to do ambient occlusion as well. Now, jumping over into my wireframe layer, you'll see that those settings got sort of transferred up to that wireframe layer. And I don't want a matte opacity or a matte pass for my wireframe layer, and I don't want a ambient occlusion pass for my wireframe layer. So to get rid of that, I'm just going to right click and create a layer override and then uncheck that. And the ambient occlusion is a little weird. To create a layer override, you have to actually check in the box, create layer override, and then uncheck it. So you don't actually get to see it turn orange. But if you jump back and forth between your two layers, you'll see that that has updated. So that's basically it to render. Now, whenever you're rendering, I have this set to OpenEXR. We don't really need that file name prefix in there, and I already rendered these, so you're not going to have to sit here and watch me render them all. I find that having it, by default, this is set to zips, I think. I find that setting your image compression to none is just a more stable EXR file. It'll open up in Photoshop, it'll open in After Effects. So that's what I would do, is set your image compression to none. This is going to pack in all your render layers into one file, or render passes into one file, but I have figured out a way to extract them using a different piece of software, and I'll go over that too. So as always, very important, set your name number dot extension. I have a little animation here, so but I've already rendered this. And frame padding, so we always want to have a 0 in front of that top number up there, and then my end frame is 1. So then we want to render both of these layers together, so I just want to make sure that they're both active. So if it has a little X down there, that means that it's not going to render that layer. So then I should be able to just go to my rendering menu. You know, I have my project set and everything, so my rendering menu, render, batch render, and it'll render both of those. And in the result, you'll have a EXR, and then I actually rendered out the wireframe in PNG, but that'll work fine as an EXR as well. So I just have an EXR, and this has my matte layer, or my matte pass, and my occlusion pass inside of it. So if I were to open this up in like IMF display, so to get to that, we'll just bring open, well, I guess we'll re-render that. So if I were to go to File, actually let's switch back to this guy. Go to File, load, nope, it's not going to let me do that. So let's deactivate that guy real quick and just re-render this guy. So File, Load, Render Pass, Ambient Occlusion, that will open up IMF display. And I can actually open an animation in here too, so we could see what the ambient occlusion looks like. But there's no way to save out the individual passes that you have, and it's kind of a pain. You can download a plugin for Photoshop, but most of those you have to pay for. So I want to extract those files from that sequence I have, and basically what I found through some research is that there is an open source application called DJV Imaging, and you can download that. Pretty simple to install, and what that's going to look like whenever you open it up is this. So and here we can open up our EXR file. So I'll go to Open, and I'm actually in the E drive, so let me change that to E. To find my file, wireframe, images, and then I have this master layer. So if I open that up, it'll open that whole animation up and play through. Like that. So what I can do here now is I can go to File, Layer, and I can view my individual layers. So if I want to look at my ambient occlusion, I can. If I want to look at my matte pass, I can as well. So we'll do the ambient occlusion first, and then I'm just going to go to Save, and we'll actually rename this to AO. Let's do an underscore, and let's just save this as a PNG instead of an EXR, and hit OK. give that a minute to crank through those. And then if we look in our folder, now we have all those individual ambient occlusion files. And we'll do that same thing for our matte as well. So save, and we'll change this to matte. Okay, so we have basically, you know, if you have your all those different passes, you'll have to do this for every single pass that you have, but this is a cheap, effective way to extract those different passes from that one EXR file. So, so now we can actually jump over into After Effects. All right, so once I'm in After Effects, I can begin importing my files. So we'll import, and it'll recognize that that's a sequence, so I can hit import, and I can actually do multiple files and then kind of do those all at once. So I'll bring in my master layer, and then wireframe. Actually, we'll do the matte, and then the wireframe. And then done. All right, so then we can start with our master layer down here and just drag that down, and that will make a composition for us. And what I'm going to do actually is go ahead and create a solid too. So I'll go to new solid, and we can make that any old color we want. Just kind of want something in the background that's not black. So, and then I'll bring in my ambient occlusion layer. And now my ambient occlusion layer will hide everything. I could set this to multiply like I would do in Photoshop, and that will kind of blend in. But I don't really do that. I think my ambient occlusion layer looks cool, so I kind of want to display that with the wireframe. So I'm going to go ahead and set that blending mode back to normal. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my matte layer to control the opacity of this. So in order to do that, you're going to bring that down here. And we can actually, once we have it in our sequence here, we can just turn that off because we don't actually need to see it. And then on the AO layer, I'm going to right click on that and go to Effects, Channel, and Set Matte. And what this will allow me to do is take matte from which layer. So I want to take that from my matte layer, and I don't want to use the alpha channel. I want to use the luminance. So, and then that will basically hide everything that's black. So if I display that, it'll hide everything that's black, and then it'll also, you know, make opaque what is white. So that fixes that problem for me. And then I can bring in my, let's go back to my project here. Then I can bring in my wireframe. So I'll drag in my wireframe. And now I realize that my wireframe probably is a little thin, you know, after the fact that I created it. So you probably want to render out just a single image, a test image, to kind of put everything together and see how it looks before you commit to making a, you know, rendering an entire sequence. And I want my wireframe to be black. So what I'm going to do is I'll right click on my wireframe and go to Effects. I could try blending modes. I could try some different blending modes and see if I could get that to work. Maybe like subtract. So that kind of works a little bit, kind of makes that black. But I can also add an effect to that. So I'll go to right click Effects, and we'll go down to color correction, and we could try tint. We could probably do levels will probably work. If I take those all the way up, that will give me black. Expand that out a little bit. So that will give me black if I take that all the way up. I can also do a hue saturation, any number of ways I can go about making that black instead of white, or I could make it any other color I want. I could also, this actually might be an easy way to do it. Yeah, I think that might actually be an easier way to do it. So let's go to our wireframe effect and let's remove that levels from it. And instead, let's right click it and go to layer styles, color overlay. And now we can make it any color we want. So we can go to color overlay here and make that black. I can change the blending mode if I want to, but for the most part, that kind of fixes what I want to do. So now I have the issue of, it didn't give me the silhouette in that wireframe because we used that ramp. So an easy way to fix that is to, now that we have we're using our matte to control our AO, we can actually come in here and add a layer style to this as well. So we'll right click, go to layer styles, and we'll do a stroke. And then we have these stroke options. It kind of comes out jagged. I find it looks a little bit better if we do the inside instead of the outside. And then we can change that color to black, decrease that size a little bit. And then we have our outline. So now say you want to do like a wipe. So say you want, we have our master layer there, and you want to do like a wipe where the wireframe kind of fades in as we're doing the turntable. So what you'd want to do is make a pre-comp of these three layers. Even though you're not seeing the matte layer, you definitely want that in the pre-comp. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shift select all three of those layers, and then I'll right click and go to pre-compose, and we'll just call this wireframe. And basically what this is going to do is treat all of those layers as one. So this is like a smart object in Photoshop, or like a symbol in Illustrator or Flash, and that's basically what a pre-comp is. And anytime I want to edit this pre-comp, I can just come down here and double click, and then I have all those in their own layer, so I can come in and edit them as I want, and then I can just go back to my master layer. So then what I can do, since I have all these as one layer now, I can actually add in a mask. So with that layer selected, if I draw a shape, it will mask that layer. So oops. So once I have my square mask in there like that, I can come down here and I can edit this. So it's set to add. I want it to be, actually add is what I want. So as it comes in, it'll animate in like that. But I want it to have a little bit of a feather to it, so it's kind of blurry. So I can do something like that. Then as my mask comes in, if I can select it, we go. No. Just doesn't want me to select that mask path, maybe. There we go. So I can animate this now. So I will I'll come down here and set a key for that, and then we'll move forward in our maybe about halfway through, maybe somewhere like here, and I'll set another key, and then I'll come in over here somewhere, and then I can move that guy, and that will automatically set a key for me. So now as that plays through, I have a wipe of that wireframe. You know, obviously I could animate it back out, or I could do multiple layers. So here it is at real time. So that's it. And then to actually make a video of that, you will go to Edit, or sorry, File, nope, Composition, Add to Render Queue. You can also add to Adobe Media Encoder. I actually find this a lot better than Add to Render Queue, because Adobe Media Encoder just has better sort of functionality as far as like the different codecs you can choose and how it renders things. So I usually prefer to use Add to Adobe Media Encoder. And that will open up Media Encoder, and then you can export it out to whatever file type you want. So that's it. That's how you render out a wireframe, the complicated way, but it's the surefire way to, you know, it will work. Just remember that, you know, you got to be careful about your UV sets and things like that. So hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned it. Subscribe to my channel. Lots more videos to come. And if you have any sort of suggestions or need to know how to do anything specific, definitely add to the comments, and I will try to make a video if I can.